Hey guys, welcome back to Mad Backyard. Today we're going to be showing you how to start up a brand new Z Grills Pellet Grill for the very first time. So stay tuned. Hey guys, when you have a brand new Z Grills Pellet Grill like this, there's a few things you need to do the very first time you start it up. Now the first time we start it up, we don't want to have pellets in it because we want to make sure that all the components are working correctly. So the first thing we need to do is get the grates and all the other stuff out of the grill. So I'm going to go ahead and take the grates out. Then we're going to take our drip pan out. And then we want to take our heat baffle out. Now the Firepot, or ash pot as it's sometimes called, is where the pellets are actually going to fall into. You can see that little tiny nub down there, that's the igniter rod. That's going to get hot, and that's what actually ignites the pellets. That tube that's feeding into the Firepot is the auger. Now the pellets travel down the length of this tube here via the auger from the hopper, and this is where we load the pellets into. Now don't go putting a bunch of pellets in here right away before you started it up. We want to turn it on first, make sure that auger is moving and everything's working well before we put a bunch of pellets in there obstructing our view. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing to do is check and make sure that you're on the shutdown cycle and that the grill is unplugged. Get yourself an extension cord or whatever you need and then go ahead and plug the grill in. Okay, we plugged in our Z Grill Pellet Grill. Now we're going to come back to the control panel. We're going to push the power button to turn it on. See it come on there. We're going to go from shutdown cycle to smoke. And you can hear that fan kick on and the display changes from settings to our temperature. 95 degrees right now is what it's reading inside the Z Grill. It's been sitting in the sun here for a little while this morning. Now we're going to come up to our hopper here and take a look at our auger. And you can see that auger turning. Still got a little piece of styrofoam from when I was putting it together, but you see it just turned a little bit there. It's not going to turn constantly, and it's not going to turn fast, but you want to watch it and make sure that it is turning every now and then, because that's what's going to feed the pellets down to the Firepot. So now we're going to come over to the Firepot. You want to kind of hold your hand over it. Be careful though, it does get real hot, and just make sure you feel a little heat coming off there, and I definitely do. And that means our igniter rod is starting to get hot. You know, give it a minute or two before you test it out, and definitely don't stick your hand down in there to test it. It gets really hot. You'll also see these little holes in the Firepot here. That's where the air comes through from the fan. So we can feel a little bit of air coming through there as well from the fan on the smoke setting. And that's all we want to check before we start putting some pellets in. So we're going to go ahead and turn it back off now. When you turn off your pellet grill, really any brand of pellet grill, but these Z Grills too, you're going to turn it to the shutdown cycle. And it's still making a noise. You'll still hear that fan going, and you may wonder, well, what's going on? Why is it still going? That's a safety feature. The fan keeps going for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the model, and that helps blow out all the pellets that might still be in the Firepot here, lit and ignited. It helps blow them out so they don't just sit there continuing to smolder for a long time. And so that's a safety feature on pretty much all pellet grills, Pit Bosses, Traegers, Z Grills. So you're going to be on the shutdown cycle here for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on your model, and then you'll hear the fan turn off automatically. All right, so now we're in the shutdown cycle. You don't have to wait the full 10 minutes this first time for it to completely go through the shutdown cycle. There's no pellets, obviously, for it to extinguish, so it doesn't matter. So we're on the shutdown cycle. Now it's time to fill the hopper with some pellets. Now, if you're new to using a pellet grill, pellets need to be kept dry and at a good temperature when you store them. I like to keep them in a pellet bucket like this Oklahoma Joe's one. You can see you can label the front. I got some Z Grills cherry pellets here. This is a lot better than just keeping them in the bag because you get a nice airtight seal on there. And I like this bucket in particular because it has a little mesh screen to kind of shake all the dust out and stuff. So this is how I keep my pellets stored indoors. So now we're going to take some, we're going to fill up the hopper. You need a pretty good amount because we're going to be doing a burn off for about 45 minutes. Once you got some pellets in the hopper, you can go ahead and close the lid. And make sure you close up your pellet bucket too. I'll have a link to this Oklahoma Joe's pellet bucket and some other equipment we use in this video down in the notes below the video. All right, now that we've got some pellets in the hopper, we're gonna go ahead and turn it from the shutdown cycle, which we don't need to be on, all the way up to the high setting. And putting it on that high setting is going to get the pellets moving through the auger pretty quick down to the fire pot. So you're not going to see them right away. Give it maybe 5 minutes or so for the pellets to kind of, we call it priming the auger, kind of filling down the whole length of this tube here from the hopper to the fire pot. So give it about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and you'll start to see some pellets dropping into the fire pot at that point. All right, guys, it's been about 5 minutes. If you're able to see into the auger there, you can see it's turning a little bit now and then. You're starting to see some pellets getting to the end here. If you're impatient like I am, you can come over here to the feed button. On some other grills, this is called a prime button, but it basically just kind of overrides the mechanics and turns the auger automatically for you, or constantly for you. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that feed button down, and you'll see that the auger's turning now, and get some pellets dropping into the fire pot. Okay, once a few pellets have fallen into the fire pot, we're going to come back to our control knob, and we're going to turn it back to the shutdown cycle. And we're going to let it run through its 10-minute shutdown cycle here. Okay guys, we've let the Z Grills Pellet Grill go through its shutdown cycle. It's turned off now. So everything we've pretty much done is, and stuff we need to do because it's the very first time we started up the grill. So we checked to make sure that the auger was turning, we checked to make sure the fan was working, and that the hot rod igniter was getting hot. We checked all that before we added pellets. Then we added our pellets, we filled up the hopper, and we let it run for about 5-6 minutes to fill the auger tube. We call that priming the auger. So now we have a full hopper, the auger tube's filled, and we have pellets pretty much right about to fall in the fire pot. Now this point we're at right now is about where you're going to start every other cook. So you're not going to have to do all that stuff we just did every single time, okay? This is kind of the point where you're going to be starting from for most of your cooks. Now what I'm going to do is still leave all the components, the grill grates, the heat baffle, and the drip tray out of the grill for now, because I want to make sure that the fire pot is working and making a nice fire when we go to turn it on, okay? So let's go ahead and turn our grill back on, push the power button, and then we're going to turn it to smoke. Smoke is the setting you always start on when you're starting up your pellet grill, your Z Grills Pellet Grill. Even if you're going to be cooking eventually at 250 or 325 or whatever the case may be, you're always going to start on smoke. And you're going to leave it on there for about 8 to 10 minutes until you see some white smoke coming out of the grill. You're going to leave the lid open for these first 8 to 10 minutes. And we call that kind of preheating the grill. So now we can hear some pellets falling into the fire pot. That igniter rod's going to get hot again, and we're going to start seeing some smoke here in a few minutes. Okay, so doing this the first time with all the components pulled out and giving you a clearer view into the fire pot, it really gives you a good idea of how a pellet grill actually works. So this is important to do the first time. So you can see that hot rod is getting hot, and the pellets are starting to touch it, and I can actually smell a little bit of smoke even though I can't see it yet. We're going to be getting some smoke here in a minute. Alright, you can see we've got a good amount of pellets touching that igniter rod now, and we're definitely getting some smoke. So when you first start up the pellet grill, you're going to get a lot of white smoke like this. There's nothing wrong with this smoke, but it's not going to be the good clean smoke we're going to use throughout a longer cook. So you'll get a lot of kind of thick, cloudy white smoke like this in the beginning. You're going to leave the lid open, and normally you'd have all the components in the grill here, but you'd leave the lid open like this. And you're going to let it run through this on the smoke setting for about 8 to 10 minutes. And this is part of preheating the grill. Then you would see the white smoke dissipate as the smoldering pellets start to ignite. You can see we're getting a little flame there now. As those turn more into a fire, the smoke's going to dissipate. We're going to get a cleaner burn. You can hear it starting to. You'll be able to hear that sound later on when we can't see the fire pot to know that your flame's going. Okay, you can see we got a good fire going now. The white smoke is dissipated. And this would be the point when you were starting to cook that then you could close your lid and change the temperature to whatever you want to cook at. For our purposes now, we need to get all these components back in the grill. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to flip it to the shutdown cycle. And what the shutdown cycle is going to do is going to turn off that igniter rod, but keep the fan going so that we eventually blow these pellets out, okay? And this is why the shutdown cycle goes, and it sounds like your grill's still on even when you turn it off. Because if you just turned it off, this fire is going to keep going for a long time possibly. But on the shutdown cycle, because the fan is blowing, it's going to blow these pellets out a lot faster than they would normally go out on their own. Okay, so we're about a minute or two into the shutdown cycle here. You can see it's really blown that flame out. Now our pellets are just kind of smoldering and they're going to go out. We're going to let the shutdown cycle finish and we're going to let this cool down a little bit. Then we're going to put all our grill components back in and then run through this one more time. All right, guys, we've let it go through the shutdown cycle. Now it's time to get all the components back in our Z Grills Pellet Grill. First thing we're going to put back in is the heat baffle. I'd recommend wearing some good heat-proof barbecue gloves when you're doing this because your fire pot's gotten real hot during the last step. You don't want to accidentally hit that with your hand and burn yourself. So putting the baffle in, you got these little tabs here, and they're going to drop into these slots in the back and the front. So we're just going to go ahead and put it down in there, line it up, and then push it over into place so it's locked into place. This is going to be your heat diffuser, and it's what's going to make the hot direct heat from the fire pot become nice, even indirect heat for smoking our food. Next, we're going to put our grease tray back in. So make sure that the part with the curved cutout is to the right. Down towards our grease chute over here. Right down in here. That's where our grease is going to go out towards the bucket. So it's going to run down this way to the right. On the left side, you want to make sure that it's clipped over this little lip here. Just like that. And then finally, we're going to put our grill grates back in. All right, we got all our components back in. The next thing we want to do is run the Z Grills Pellet Grill one more time. So we're going to turn it on. And again, we always start it on smoke. Hear that fan kick on. And you can't see it now, but now that we've run through it one time without the components in place, we understand what's happening down below. The pellets are falling into the fire pot. They're going to start to ignite as the rod gets hot again, and we're going to see that white smoke from that initial burn as they start to get hot. All right, so we're starting to get some white smoke here as the pellets are starting to ignite. Again, this is how you're going to start every cook on your Z Grills Pellet Grill. You turn it on, you turn it to the smoke setting, let the pellets start to ignite, let this white smoke dissipate. It's going to be about an 8-minute process. And then you can close your lid and turn the temperature to whatever you want. For our purposes, what we want to do is turn it to high after this is over. And the reason being is that anytime you get a new grill, there's going to be factory residues and glues and oils and things that you don't want getting into your food the first time you throw some food on the grill. So what we're going to do is we'll let this smoke dissipate here through the preheat part. Then we'll close the lid, we're going to turn it to high, and we're going to let it run on high for about 45 minutes to kind of burn off all that nasty factory stuff. Then we'll turn it back to the shutdown cycle, and it'll be ready to use. All right, guys, that white startup smoke is dissipated. It really hasn't even taken the full 8 minutes that they say in the manual it takes. It's really only been about 4 or 5, so not long at all. You can hear that fire roaring down in the fire pot now. So we're going to go ahead and close the lid. And we want to do our burn off, so let's turn our temperature all the way up to high. We're going to let it run here for about 45 minutes is what the instructions recommend. Make sure you got plenty of pellets in your hopper for the next 45 minutes. We'll keep an eye on these as we burn through the burn off here, and we'll see you in about 45 minutes. All right, guys, so we went through the 45-minute burn off period, and then we turned it to the shutdown cycle and let it run there for about 10 minutes, and it just turned off. So now we've burned off all the residues and glues and other things. You can see our drip pan even looks a little different now after running through that. Now we're ready to actually cook on it. So remember, next time you turn it on, you're gonna load the hopper with pellets, plug it in, push the power button, and turn it to the smoke setting. You're gonna let it run on the smoke setting for about 5 to 8 minutes or so till that white smoke dissipates. Then you can close the lid and turn it to whatever temperature you want and cook your food. When you're done, make sure to always turn it to the shutdown cycle and let it run through that 10-minute shutdown cycle before you unplug it. Make sure to check out the article that accompanies this video at madbackyard.com. I'll have a link to it in the description down below. And make sure to also check out madbackyard.com for a whole bunch of recipes to get you started with your new Z Grills Pellet Grill. Thanks for watching.